Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
With the first pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Cameron Ward, quarterback, Miami.
There it is, the first pick of 32 on Thursday night in Green Bay, where the 2025 NFL Draft went down. Dan Hanzus here with Marc Sessler, Conor Orr, James Palmer, Justin Graver on the ones and twos, an all-star team here to break down the night that was round one of the NFL Draft. Sessy, Cam Ward, obviously that was the pick we all knew was coming. Things started getting more interesting at pick 2 with the Cleveland Browns, and if you watched our live stream, you know that Sessy's conflicted about it. How you doing a couple hours later?
Well, no, as I texted to our small exclusive brain power group, with a little more, with just a tad more reflection, you can see things through a different lens. That's fine. You can I know it. I feel like we all have guy friends, and no matter what team they grew up with, watching their team had the best draft, and they're going to shout at you on the phone. It's I am of the different extreme. I don't know what they've done, and I just listened to the Jaguars brain trust speak for an hour, and I'm not convinced the Browns weren't taken out behind the woodshed, but we'll see, because history would suggest anything is possible. But I'm not certain they've won this, but then I'm trying to be optimistic as Connor's trying to pull me back in.
Let me set the table a little better before throwing it to you, Conor, because what we're referring to is the Jaguars trading up with the Cleveland Browns. So the Browns moved down 3 spots with the trade. Cleveland received the number 5 pick, a second rounder, number 36, a 4th round selection, number 126, and a 2026 first round pick from the Jaguars, who got that second pick. They also got a 4th rounder and a 6th rounder. With that second overall pick, they take Travis Hunter, a player they see as a transcendent talent. I just went into full Travolta there. The wickedly talented Travis Hunter. Conor, why was this the right move for the Cleveland Browns?
Wickedly talented. Please welcome the wickedly talented one and only Dazzy.
Well, for a couple reasons, right? You made the Deshaun Watson mistake. You need to recoup the draft assets. You need to set yourself up either in the top of the second round to get a quarterback that you want, or you need to build draft assets to get up higher on the board for next year's draft class. Again, to rectify the mistake that you made for Deshaun Watson. Also, I've just been giving this a lot of thought over the last few minutes. And for example, let's say you're playing the Ravens and Travis Hunter is having a good game for the Browns on the offensive side of the ball, and then you stick him on defense. What's John Harbaugh going to do? He's going to run Derrick Henry right at him and Patrick Ricard. And what's he going to do on second down? He's going to do the same thing again. And on third down, to the point where Travis Hunter will be useless on the other side of the ball. He's going to try to knock him out of the game. I think that this is easier for the Jaguars to do in a different division, but the condition, the climate that the Browns play in, plus the fact that this organization has never gotten anything right, makes it so it's impossible to fully realize Travis Hunter's potential. It can work. This was the line that I used earlier today. You can have a unicorn if you have unicorn trainers. The Browns do not have unicorn trainers. It's not going to work in Cleveland. It's not going to work.
James Palmer.
I didn't know unicorn trainers existed, but
they have so many in Jacksonville. It's pretty fortunate for them.
No, here's the problem. Here's the problem. I don't think they have unicorn trainers in Jacksonville. Do you know who their defensive back coach is? Anthony Perkins. You know how many years he's been a defensive back coach in the NFL? 0 before this year. This is his first year as a defensive back coach. I think that's a big problem. I've talked to
first-time defensive play caller too.
Yeah, first-time defensive play caller. And I do think, Conor, the position coaches, though, with Travis Hunter are extremely important for a few reasons. I've talked to a number of defensive back coaches and wide receiver coaches about Hunter specifically, and it's this. He is not refined at either position. Is he unbelievably talented? Yes. When I watched his pro day, his showcase up in Boulder, and I was there, I'm standing there with my good buddy Steve Smith Sr. standing next to me, and he's like, we're watching the routes, which are just routes you don't run in the NFL. They were just a bunch of like fast twitch, change of direction type of things to show how unbelievably athletic he is. He was like, there's so many tells in his routes. Defensive backs are going to see all of these tells in his routes, and it's not his fault. He just hasn't played the position a ton and had it refined by a coach. So then when I was talking to a receiver coach who was there, he was like, position coaches for Travis Hunter are going to be everything because you have half the time with him and you're going to be fighting for time with him. And it's up to you in one-on-one situations to not only go, you run a post and this is the play call. No, we need your hands here. We need your feet here. All of this different teaching that has to go on. The position coaches are huge. Now, I think his wide receiver coach in Edgar Bennett has been around for an eternity. He was in Green Bay forever, Raiders forever, maybe a little bit different situation on that side. All position coaches are not equal in the NFL. I was talking to a receiver coach who said there's probably 5 good wide receiver coaches in the NFL, like in his opinion, like really good. And that's huge for the development of Travis Hunter. So my point on this is, how many people have you talked to, Conor or Marc or Dan, like that have said in the NFL, because I've talked to a number of them, I don't think this works. I don't think playing both ways works. What if it doesn't? Like, what if it doesn't? I'm excited to see him try. I'm very excited to see it because we've never seen it. But what if it doesn't?
Okay, so that was a lot of negativity from you guys. I understand.
I'd agree.
I absolutely understand the reasons why it could not work, and it could happen for any prospect for any number of reasons. By the way, Anthony Perkins could turn into the best defensive backs coach in the league. Just because he doesn't have experience doesn't mean it's not going to work out.
You're
Same
right.
thing.
He was the defensive quality control coach in Green Bay last year, and that's the extent I believe of his NFL experience.
I get it, but the idea here is to bring on someone who is a unicorn, and you might not have unicorn trainers, but hell, man, having a unicorn in the first place is cool. A big deal. And Conor, your example about John Harbaugh is going to game plan to go right at him on defense. Well, the part of this is the opposing head coach has to game plan on both sides of the ball to stop this guy because he's a goddamn stud. Or at least that's the way James Gladstone and the Jaguars are viewing this, which is why they made the aggressive move up the board. Here's Gladstone during the draft, during his press conference.
There are players who have the capacity to alter a game. There are players who have the capacity to alter the trajectory of a team. There are very few players who have the capacity to alter the trajectory of the sport itself. Woo! Travis, while he has a lot to still earn, in our eyes, has the potential to do just that.
This guy looks like a sophomore sociology major at UTEP.
I know.
What the hell is he telling me?
I would say one thing. He reminds me of 82 to 85% of the people that I would meet. I live up in Hollywood, like out at a bar telling you how the world works. But he did come
Who old babyface Gladstone?
Yeah, he did come from the Rams system. And I watched this entire hour-long press conference where like Liam Cohen was outshone by him. Like Gladstone just spoke at will for like 35 minutes about why they did this. So I think, I guess my final point would be I think it can be good for both teams. It might be right for the Jaguars. They believe so much in this. But then Cleveland suddenly picks first pick in second round, fourth pick in second round, and you've gotten a defensive player who we know will be successful. I mean, barring a disaster, or barring a satellite falling from the sky. You're right, but I'm saying on paper, on paper it works. So it's I can be won over to the concept of both teams. But this idea that no one can make it work with Travis Hunter, it's human creativity is too incredible and too powerful. And we're just talking about a football player. This is possible.
To James and Conor's point, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not saying nobody can make it work, but you have to be. Right. He has to be in the right spot, and maybe Jacksonville isn't the right spot. And the player you're referring to, Marc, I think was defensive tackle Mason Graham, who the Browns get at 5. But it's all a crapshoot. Half of these first round picks are going to wash out of the league in 4 or 5 years. Another half will be marginal athletes or replacement level guys. It's all a dart throw. So I guess the Jaguars move on this, and why I support and why I hate that the Browns did what they did, is guys that have that DNA to be potentially special game-changing players. I think Gladstone maybe went over the top because those are words that are going to stick with him if this doesn't work out, by saying he could change the sport itself and all that. But there's a reason why those words are being said, because he's a rare Ohtani-like talent in the NFL, and it's going to put meat in the seats and give excitement for people in Jacksonville. And I thought Cleveland could use that shot in the arm, and they don't get it here.
Two things I'll say very quickly. I do think Gladstone asking around has a great reputation, and there are a lot of people that think he's going to succeed there. And Les Snead thinks the world of him, and who's a general manager I think we all think is pretty good at his job, and he sees a lot of positives in Gladstone. So I'll think of that. And then you don't make this trade if you don't have a distinct plan in place with your coaching staff and with your organization of how you're going to use Travis Hunter. You just don't make the trade if you're going to do that. But the funny part is, a lot of people I've talked to around the league think, A, he's a better wide receiver than he is a corner. And if he just ends up being a Pro Bowl wide receiver out of this, should you have traded up in the first round and given up a first-round pick for a Pro Bowl wide receiver, if that's what he is in 2 to 3 years? Listen, I don't want to dog Travis Hunter. I think he's unbelievable. I think what we're seeing in terms of the mental capacity to handle two playbooks is the part that's not talked about enough. It's crazy what he's going to try to accomplish. And I've seen other players even try it for a second and it doesn't work. It's fun to watch. It's going to be fun to watch. Whether it succeeds or fails. But I do think Gladstone has a plan in place on how they're going to handle this.
And last thing I'll say on this, you look at the Jaguars depth chart, and don't forget that last year they absolutely hit their first-round pick at wide receiver out of the park in Brian Thomas Jr., so that you have now Hunter doesn't have to come in and be the man on the offensive side of the ball. He could find a role there and be a playmaker, but not have to be the number one receiver. And I guess, Conor, at the end of the day, like, you think about why did they make this move? Why did Jacksonville add another player on offense and defense? But I really think they want to, they're so in on Trevor Lawrence, and it's been a lost couple of years. I don't think they want to leave any shadow of the doubt. If this guy is going to be the dude they wanted him to be when they brought him into the league, let's give him all the pieces and see if he could finally put it together. And now there's really nothing you could say, at least in terms of skill makers on the outside, to say that Lawrence was not given enough toys to play with.
I suppose so, but the only way you can fully sell me on this is if Travis Hunter can play interior defensive line. That's what the Jaguars have needed for 5 years. Like, does James Gladstone have a plan right now for, Mason Smith, what do we got? Devon Hamilton? That's who's protecting your linebackers right now and helping your great rush ends. So, I don't know. Travis Hunter can do that.
An imperfect roster. Gravy?
You got 6 more rounds, and it's a deep DT class. Maybe they find someone tomorrow.
Deeper.
All right, and last note on this, the Cleveland Browns are on the clock as we speak right now, and they have 32. I believe they're at 36 as well.
Yep.
As a result of this draft. So keep an eye on what they do, because they obviously went in the trenches, and now they could take Shedeur Sanders. One of the other big stories here is Cam Ward comes off at 1, and then Jaxson Dart goes to the Giants in the 20s, and then Sanders just sits there. Tough beat, Ceci, for Shedeur Sanders here. Between the entourage he's riding with, there was the guy with the oversized novelty hat with his logo on it, which is a big S, a dollar sign. He's got $10 million in jewels with his logo on. He's got his dad there. He's at a draft party of some kind with his giant logo on the wall. And everybody just go home? What happens in that situation? Is there an after party? Or do you...
I think he's probably taxied home, and people have to feed him into a taxi. Conor, that feels like something we.
You think he's a little sauced up? You think he was a little sauced up?
Maybe I would have some drinks. That's got to be that's a tough experience. And then you get the camera over. They keep panning to you, and it was just Deion just had this grin on his face the whole time. But they're dying. So Sanders is there. If the Browns want to go grab a quarterback now, or maybe they do, Marc, what we thought is possible, which is they build up the roster this year and then go get the quarterback next year, and now you have an extra first-round pick. So a lot to dig into on the Browns side of things.
And I don't want to be Browns heavy at the top of the show. Well, that's too that train's left the station. But I would say, in theory, Jimmy Haslam is close with the Mannings. I have always found that to be bizarre, because why attach yourself to the Haslams on any level? But in theory, the Browns want to wait till next year to get Arch Manning, and so they've bypassed in this quarterback class. You don't risk.
Well, you need the number 1 overall pick potentially to get him, but
there's no guarantee he comes
you
out,
added a number 1 pick. Like to
Yeah.
Conor's point, like the trade that you made with the Jaguars puts you in pole position for the first time in more than half a decade as the Cleveland Browns to like make a move in the draft. So either it's like you're just looking it forward and you're saying we're taking Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett and fill in the blank to get us through a season, and we don't need to get the star special 2 position player this year. We just get guys that kind of are Cleveland football. Or they surprise us. I don't know, it's a surprise. Or you go get Shedeur Sanders tomorrow. But then like that feels to me like if you're Deion, and this is just me being negative, like the last place Deion Sanders wants his precious son to go is the Cleveland Browns that have made a cottage industry of like kind of wrecking quarterbacks. So like I don't know what the selling point is for anyone there, like, but
it could work. It could work out for Sanders where he ends up landing, because usually if you're a high pick as a quarterback, you go into a bad team. Maybe he ends up with a good team and he steps into a spot. But the Steelers passed on him, obviously. The Giants went in a different direction. I think the Giants are a big story here, con man. So let's talk about them. They take Abdul Carter as expected, the Penn State star with the number 3 overall pick. And then they trade back into the first round and they get Jaxson Dart, the Ole Miss quarterback, at 25. They traded the number 34, the number 99, and a 3rd-round pick next year with the Texans to move up 9 spots. So now he joins a room with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, and it's the same old story.
Tommy DeVito.
Connor.
Don't forget
and Tommy DeVito, yeah.
Don't forget
poor Tommy Cutlets. He ain't going to survive this one. He's been a survivor. He's been like a cockroach in an old Italian restaurant, but this time it's not going to work out for him. But I'll say this. The talk that you're hearing about, the Giants have a plan, and I like what the Giants did tonight, but so hear me out. The Giants have a plan, so now you have Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, and you could redshirt Jaxson Dart because he's still got a lot of developing to do. Nah, bro, that guy is starting in a minimum of 6 and up to 10 games this year. I guarantee it. There will be no redshirting for Dart. I think Wilson and Winston, by week 8, probably both get their chances, and then the Giants fans will revolt if the kid doesn't get in the lineup. So Dart's part of the program right now for the Giants, in my opinion.
I agree, and I'm curious what James's take is on this, but I think recently I've kind of heard, and again, this could be the Giants trying to push back on a narrative or soften a narrative, but this idea that even though we had to kind of come out with a statement to say that we're not firing the coach and the GM, that they aren't really on as hot of a seat for this coming year as we think they are, and that this is the kind of draft that solidifies that idea where it's like Jaxson Dart is a very much developmental quarterback. He was coveted specifically by Brian Daboll, who we trust at the position. And I think that for the first time ever, I'm kind of looking at this team now as sort of having a 1 or 2 year runway, as opposed to like these guys have to figure it out right now or everybody's ass is out the door.
Yeah, Conor, it's funny you brought that up because I was talking to somebody this afternoon and they were like, you know what I wish would have happened? Maybe like a little 2-year extension for Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, just to kind of tell them that we are going to give them a little bit of patience here, because this executive was like, I think the world of Brian Daboll as a quarterback developer. And obviously he has some pelts on the wall for doing that. And so maybe we do see a little bit of a runway here, but they did so much work on all of these quarterbacks. And oftentimes when people go, wow, they went to Boulder this time and this time and this time. And by the way, I'm not sure what Jimmy Haslam thinks about all the miles he racked up on his plane. I've never seen an owner go and see prospects the way he did. And they didn't end up with either one of them in Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, but he ate with them quite a bit during this process.
Didn't he do the same thing with Darnold, Marc, once upon a time, and then he ended up taking Mayfield? Like they seem to like throwing those curveballs.
He travels
just like
more than any owner I know during this process.
Flights and dinner. Like I think a lot of rich people would be down with those two concepts.
But I also think the thing we oftentimes forget is when you're doing this much work, it's usually to confirm something, and it's not always to confirm yes. It's usually to confirm sometimes no. Like we're going to see Shedeur Sanders over and over again because we want to make sure we're making the right call on passing him. And that's kind of part of the thinking as well. And I also wanted to bring up a point of Jaxson Dart in this. I went back and watched a video of myself from March 4th for Underdog saying, I think Jaxson Dart's going to be the second quarterback taken. I also said in that video 4 quarterbacks would go in the first round, so I was wrong right at the same time.
We'll edit that second part out.
Yeah, I wanted to lop off the end because I said that at the end. But I do think this is an example as players are continuing to participate less and less during this part of the process. Jaxson Dart benefited from participating in everything. Like, he crushed the Senior Bowl. He was the best quarterback there. He competed and threw at the Combine when so many quarterbacks don't. And all these people were telling me, like, I really want to go back and watch some more film after I saw him throw at the Combine. At his pro day, he was asking coaches what they wanted to see from him during his pro day. I think when we're seeing with NIL money and all these guys competing less during this process, Jaxson Dart benefited himself quite a bit by actually competing in every time he was asked to do it. And that might have got him into the first round with Cam Ward. It's kind of fascinating.
Very interesting.
Nobody liked that take, I think, because everybody's very quiet on it. But
I'm ruminating on it.
I'd say mulling it over.
Mulling it over?
It's one of those situations.
Yeah.
Let's see. Will Campbell goes fourth to the Patriots. Chalky. They get their left tackle. We mentioned Mason Graham to the Browns. Ashton Jeanty, okay, the running back from the goes to the Raiders out of Boise State. We're about to get into that, but before we do, it is NFL Draft Week. But also the NBA and NHL playoffs are ongoing. Hey, Knicks got a W today, and I didn't get a chance to watch it. After we're through with this show, I'm going to watch it on the old DVR.
Whoa, late night for you.
I like doing that. Anyway, the best part about all this is you can win. So will Conor. It's going to be like 3 a.m, and then he's going to tee up the Knicks game. You know, sleep unnecessary in Jersey tonight. And the best part is you can win even if your team doesn't. It's easy. Just pick higher or lower on 2 or more players, any sport, any game, and you could win big. Get started right now by scanning the QR codes on your screen or sign up with the code HTC. New users can receive up to $1,000 in bonus credits when they deposit for our U.S. audience only.
Must be 18 or older. 19 or older in Alabama and Nebraska. 19 or older in Colorado for some games. 21 or older in Arizona and Massachusetts. And present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
All right. Let's talk about Jeanty. So the running back goes number 6 to the Raiders. You like this one, Conman?
I like it a lot because, I mean, what the Raiders needed elsewhere kind of wasn't falling to them at that point. And I kind of felt like the trade market for Jeanty was a little overblown. I mean, by the time we got to the day before the draft, it was like, oh my God, people are going to try to get up to 4 to get him. I never thought that was possible. But I do agree that Jeanty was probably one of the 3 best players in the draft. But what the Raiders needed, I mean, okay, they need help at like interior offensive line, but you're not going to get that. You need help at corner, but the need didn't really fit where they were sitting in the draft.
And wide receiver, which you weren't going to take there either.
Wide receiver, you weren't going to take there either. And so you have Chip Kelly, who had a lot of success at Ohio State last year with almost reverse engineering the way that he had always played at Oregon with this kind of time control, ball control offense that kind of zapped all the energy out of your opponents. And why not try to do that at the NFL level now and take the greatest running back prospect that we've had in the last 2 or 3 years and put him on a team and make life easier for Geno Smith? I mean, I think it's the closest thing that they could have made to an instant upgrade.
And the Raiders, 5 months ago when football was happening, were a bowl of vanilla ice cream. And now you've got like an offensive coordinator that you could say there's a concept of identity. Head coach, there's a proof of identity. A semi-owner that has a lot of identity. You've got a quarterback that has some identity. You've got a running back that could be rookie of the year very easily. So it's like the Raiders have done a lot of, I think, progressive work in a short amount of time. And this is kind of like a little bit of a cherry on top type of draft pick for me.
Well, these type of picks are the ones that look fun and they're fun to talk about. And, this team has so much to do and they go get a running back. Forget all that, though, right? Because you know what? This passes the mustard test for me, Palmer? The old NFL Blitz mustard test. Remember the great arcade game from the turn of the millennium?
Yep.
And it was kind of like a ripoff of NBA Jam, but for football. And now you got a nice little NFL Blitz package on offense. Geno Smith, a very capable QB1. Ashton Jeanty, a running back with superstar upside. And Brock Bowers, who was an instant superstar at tight end. We got some pieces, and you paid Max Crosby on the other side of the ball. Obviously, this is a team of work in progress in a very difficult division. But to your point, Mark, I feel like there's a plan here, and they're getting better and hopefully more fun to watch, because that's part of what we try to get out of these drafts too, make the boring teams more fun.
Yeah, and they added help on that defensive line the last couple of years, and it just hasn't been healthy to help out Max Crosby. So you get Christian Wilkins back, you get your first-round pick from a couple of years ago if you can get healthy, and you try to help out Max up front, and maybe that makes you a little bit better. I did think there was still a chance they were going to go offensive line just because Colton Minter's getting older. You could kind of get somebody inside and kick out later, and maybe that's the way you build it first before the back. But I'm completely fine with this because, I was talking to a couple of offensive coordinators over the last couple of days where I'm like, hey, I'm hearing these Ashton Jeanty comparisons to like LaDainian Tomlinson. And I'm like, come on. Like, seriously? And both of them were like, nah, man, he's that good. Like, he's legitimately that good. And then I had a former Super Bowl head coach text me this morning, Super Bowl winning head coach, text me this morning going, if you don't like Emmitt Smith, don't draft Ashton Jeanty. And I'm like, wow, we're getting some serious names thrown out here about Ashton Jeanty. Well, I hope he doesn't hear this. He's probably a regular Heed the Call listener. But Ashton, that's high praise for you, and you got a lot to live up to. But the part that I do think is fascinating real quick, there was somebody else who loved Travis Hunter in this draft. And I mean loved Travis Hunter. And he was the one who likes to put out little clues about who he's taking in the first round. I don't know if you guys follow Pete Carroll on Twitter.
That's Pete Carroll, yeah.
But Pete loved Travis. And there was some buzz a while ago about them trying to move up. And I was thinking now, Conor, like, they had a real need at receiver and a real need at corner. They actually needed both those positions really badly, actually.
Right. Well, they averaged 3.6 yards per rush last year, Vegas, and he joins a running back room, Conor, that has Raheem Mostert, who kind of fell out of favor in the last couple of years. Zamir White, Sincere McCormick.
There's a name.
Dylan Laub. These are the names that. So it was an area in need, in addition to being maybe the best player on the board in terms of instant ability to transform an offense.
And I think, like, not to get too lofty here or sound like the Jaguars GM at this point, but like we need to stop thinking. We need to stop thinking about players like Jeanty as running backs and players who can. You're simply putting them on the field to force the defense to dictate. Make them do something that they don't want to do. Basically, like Kellen Moore was calling them difference makers, and I do think that there's something to that when he was talking about Jeanty earlier.
Good call.
All right, let's move on. If you watched the live stream, and again, thank you. We had over 2,000 people.
Let's go. I was invited.
We're going to get to all the particulars of the back end of the live stream where we found out definitively whether or not, and no spoilers here, if you didn't watch the stream, and even James Palmer, like, you might not know, but can Justin dunk? We'll talk about that at the end of the show, because that's how we close this.
You might be able to guess the answer, but
and a thank you. And thank you to Josh Hayden, Jay Gruden, Steve Smith from NFL Network headquarters, which was a nice little Jordan and Mike, who all jumped in on the stream, which was great. I was pulling for Tyler Warren, the tight end, to go to the Jets, but understood that it was a very good chance that they would go tackle because they had a huge hole there. They do go tackle Armand Membu. Usually don't take a right tackle in the top 10, but I understand why they did it. So that they go tackle the Panthers. They make a move, and they take Tet McMillan, the Arizona wide receiver, who Mark, Steve Smith said on the stream, your buddy Steve Smith, James Palmer.
No, why wasn't I invited on the stream? Like, you had everybody on.
Because we were saving you for this, because this is arguably more important.
Okay.
Think of it that way.
I hope this gets way more than 2,000 people
Don't view it through that lens.
Yeah. We promise you'll get way more than 2,000. Agent 89 himself, future Hall of Famer, should be a Hall of Famer, Steve Smith, had Tet McMillan as his fifth best wide receiver. We had Jay Gruden, coach, also on the stream at that time. He had him as his number 7 wide receiver, and yet the Panthers take Tet here, Panthers team that obviously has major defensive holes as well. So this was the first whoa after the number 2 pick trade.
Since I wasn't on the stream, I'll go. I talked to Steve right after this pick. Steve called me, and he's like, I was like so excited. I was like, hello, because we've talked about Tet so much. And I'm like, hello. He's like, bro.
He just laughed.
I was like,
he laughed when the stream started.
Yeah. I was like, are you doing okay? He's like, what the? I mean, he wasn't a fan. Obviously, he told you guys, so I won't tell you what Steve thought. But I will say this. He was the dream pick for the Cowboys at 12, I'm told. That's what Dallas wanted to do at 12, but he was off the board. I think this is borderline malpractice, what they're doing to Ejiro Evero. Like, it's a really talented defensive coordinator that, to my understanding, is becoming very, very frustrated with his situation, who used to be in the conversation for future head coaching opportunities. You have not heard his name really sniff that at all in recent years.
He interviewed for a job not this past cycle, but the cycle before, after the Panthers had the worst record in the NFL.
That shows you his reputation, Conor, right, of what the type of coach he is. And he has no players. Like, Jadeveon Clowney was their only really edge presence right now. They could have used a defensive tackle. They missed out on Milton Williams, who they tried really desperately to get in free agency. They could have went inside. They could have went outside. They could have went with versatile pieces that help the way he coaches a defense. And that part really makes me scratch my head. But also it makes me go, they must not be very happy with the receiving core right now. I know for a fact that Xavier Legette has not lived up to what they thought he would be in his first year. You bring back Adam Thielen. I just think, yeah, you got to get a weapon for your quarterback, but there are some holes in the way Tet plays. But I will tell you this, that was their dream pick at 12, I was told.
Yeah, so let's keep moving then. So another tight end comes off the board at 10, or the first tight end, Colston Loveland, to Michigan, out of Michigan, goes ahead of Tyler Warren. That was, I think, a surprise to some. Michael Williams out of Georgia goes to the Niners at 11, and then the Cowboys at 12. Now thwarted in their attempt to find that complement to CD Lamb at wide receiver. Instead of pivoting to Golden or someone else in the wide receiver ranks, they go with a trench help, Tyler Booker at guard.
I have a weird comment. Like, I have just learned to trust what Dallas does in the draft. Yeah. I know that it's easy just to fling arrows at them left and right. They're rambunctious. They say too much. They don't prove their point by the end of the season. But like, their drafts year after year are pretty good. And so
especially on the offensive line, they have a proven track record.
Definitely on the offensive
when they
line.
do something that I don't expect, like and that shouldn't be that surprising. Like I am willing to live with it. So it's like, I'm kind of like, let's see what happens here, personally. And
we'll be checking in on Conor or the Marc Sessler mock draft, and we'll actually compare it to the Lance Zierlein mock draft after a very, at times, tense 14th annual
it
mock
was a
Sessler
tete-a-tete, I would say. It really was. So
Sessler mock draft. We'll check in on that in a bit, too.
Can I chime in real quick on Dallas? Yeah. I just know, like I mentioned, the Tet McMillan was, or T-Mac, I think he prefers, actually. That was their dream pick.
In all scenarios?
I think that's what he wants to do moving forward. He's hey, why no T-Bone? Because Tim Watley.
What if I don't want to call him T-Bone?
Tim Watley.
Do I have a choice?
I'm a Christian names only guy. Yeah.
So they wanted to move back out of 12. It was either once T-Mac was off the board, they wanted to move out of 12. Once they couldn't move out of 12, my understanding is that like Booker was the no-brainer. And the thought that you guys are onto, to me, is accurate, because I was told, like, look at the defensive lines we face in the division. Like, and I was like, that's a pretty good point. Like, there's some really good interior players in this division, in Philadelphia and in New York. And so that was kind of their play. And I just feel like when Dallas is boring, they're actually better at this when they're boring.
Yeah, that's certainly fair. At 13, the Dolphins go with defensive line help, Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. And then at 14, the Colts go Tyler Warren out of Penn State. And Conor, I enjoyed this part of our live stream. This irked you. This was a pre-TNC Conor, I thought, was coming out a little bit, because you thought the Colts shouldn't have been able to just fall into this guy that they needed at a position of need. You thought they should have had to go up and get him. And it bothered you that he was just sitting there for them. Tell us why.
Well, I think on multiple levels, right? Like if the Bears
I'm still trying to figure it out, so please.
Yeah, I don't know why you're mad. Like Chris Ballard's at least happy for a change for something.
Well, yeah, I mean, it worked out for him, but everybody knew that the Colts were going to take one of the two tight ends, and I think that Tyler Warren was uniquely, just like Colston Loveland was better for the Bears because they already had Cole Kmet, I think Tyler Warren is more ideal for the Colts because of Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson and some of the help their offensive line needs and how Tyler Warren can kind of fit all those things. And if you're another team, I thought there were some teams behind the Colts that definitely could have used Tyler Warren as an upgrade as an offensive weapon. Why not at least test the waters a little bit? You know, make the Colts sweat it out. You know, I don't know. I don't think we should just reward people for just sitting there and just lapping up a potential Swiss Army knife weapon. I don't think that's fair.
It's an interesting take.
Does it make sense? There's been years where there's been an obvious need, a team in an obvious need fit, and then another team just flies in ahead of them and swoops the player out. And then it's just a big middle finger, and I think that's how we should draft. We should be more aggressive.
But that did happen to them last year, right? Like they wanted Bowers so bad, and I think he was taken 2 picks before them.
Yeah,
last year. So they got you screwed me again, Pennypacker. Last year
they got kind of a weird, They got a weird roster a little bit, like on offense specifically. So they got some pieces at wide receiver, like Alec Pierce and Adonai Mitchell and Michael Pittman and Josh Downs. And then, of course, they have Jonathan Taylor. Now you have Tyler Warren. And then the quarterbacks are Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. And, usually when it's a highly touted tight end enters the league, you think, oh, he could be a instant, producer. It seems like he's entering a tricky spot there. It'll be interesting to see how it all comes together and if he could find a role right out of the bat.
It's one of the most annoying things about covering, any sport, but especially football, is these dog day months we're about to enter where Shane Steichen really believes he can do something with player X, Y, and Z. And it's like, holy smokes, you're just spinning yarn through my mind. But I kind of think that Warren matched with Daniel Jones, matched with the running situation, matched with some of these weapons. I kind of want to believe in it, but I feel like I've fallen for the Colts 3 or 4 times also. So, put me in carbonite.
Shane did a pretty good job with Dallas Goedert when he was the OC in Philly. Those are pretty successful year for Dallas, I'd say that.
Big year for Shane Steichen. All right, let's move on. So then the Falcons are on the clock at 15, and they grab Jalen Walker, linebacker out of Georgia, and that will be not the last time we hear from the Falcons. I'll get to that in a bit. The Cardinals get trench help with Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss at 17. This one is interesting. I think this is right when we jumped off the stream, Mark, and then I was checking and I saw the very end of the Knicks game. And so this one, I'm in real time catching up on this one. So Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, the edge. Interesting because obviously you have the Trey Hendrickson drama unfolding. They also... Sam Hubbard had retired, so they had a need there, but also now they have a little Hendrickson backup plan in Stewart. So there you go. They add to the defensive side of the ball after their splashy moves on offense this offseason.
My quick comment there would be you Lee Harvey Oswalded your last defensive coordinator. I didn't think that was fair, but now you've got Al Golden.
So he did act alone. Thank you. Finally, you've come around on this, Mark.
Well, he was centered as someone who acted alone.
Well, you didn't say Lee Harvey and the guy in the Knoll and the Russians and the Mafia. I'm just saying.
That's for a different show, probably a month from now. But I would just say that
I like to be on that show.
From what looking into Stewart or Shamar Stewart a little bit, it's the physical traits seem dominant. So can you become one of those guys? I kind of loved his on-stage interview. That means nothing, of course. That's he's not. It's not a song and dance act, but this is a large person. They needed defense, and they do. I think I thought they were going to go either interior offensive line or this, and so I have no problem with this pick. Perfect for the Bengals. They need 8 defensive guys.
It felt like, too, an indictment less on, maybe not on Trey Hendrickson, but on Miles Murphy, who was their high drafted edge. And it's one of those things where I wonder if they're hoping that Trey Hendrickson comes back and that Stewart can be on the opposite side. And then Murphy, if he comes around, that's great. But I think that was more of a sign we can't wait for you anymore, bro. It's just not working out for us.
The Seahawks go and get Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State, a guard. Another wide receiver comes off the board at 19. Another team I trust. I trust the Tampa Bay Bucks to go get a wide receiver because they have a great track record in recent years. Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State, with, of course, Mike Evans still an all-pro level guy, but edging into his mid-30s. Chris Godwin, he's back, but he's coming off a serious injury. They have a lot of weapons around Baker Mayfield. The Denver Broncos take Texas corner Jahdae Barron, and then the Steelers at 21. So this was this would be what would be called a pressure point of the draft. Yes, Marc Sessler.
Yeah, an inflection point, a pressure point.
An inflection point. That's what I was looking for.
Yep.
Big time.
And everyone was thinking, is this where Shedeur Sanders comes off the board? Is this where Jaxson Dart comes off the board? No, the Steelers stay pat. And remember, the Steelers, Sessdog, do not have a second-round pick. So by making the decision to take Derek Harmon, the DT out of Oregon, they, for all intents and purposes, are Aaron Rodgers or bust. And I hope they have a handshake that is sturdy as oak and not like the Jerry Maguire, Jerry O'Connell character, sturdy as oak, because otherwise they are up Schitt's Creek without a paddle.
I would ask James and Conor, like,
this Kush.
Are you, because I know it's like all the media is just like, of course, Sanders is going to go at some point, maybe even number 3. It's like that started to feel ridiculous. But are you surprised the Steelers didn't hit the button on that and say, we're going to roll with this and see what happens? It feels like no one's surprised at this point.
You know what? Daniel Jeremiah on the NFL Network telecast made a great point right before the pick came in. And, you know, it's hard for me to say that DJ made a great point, but he did. He said that the scouting report for Shedeur Sanders is remarkably similar to the scouting report of Kenny Pickett, taken in the same area of the first round a few years back. They got on that merry-go-round and got off it very quickly. And it does not surprise me if they had a similar viewpoint as a player, Sanders to Pickett, that they weren't interested in that because they'd done that dance. So that made a lot of sense to me why they would not be interested in a player with limited NFL level skills. Let's be real about it.
I would say with limited elite traits. When you look at the guys that are in your division, I mean, you look at, you're going to be competing against Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, and like you already went at that with a guy that had middle of the road traits in Kenny Pickett. You're right. So that already kind of existed. What I do think this is a little bit telling, as you know, Omar Khan says, you know, a day or two before the draft, we're going to have 4 quarterbacks going into the draft, and they don't take one here. They don't have a second round pick, like you said. I know that conversations have continued between Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers. To me, this is probably maybe further down the road between those two parties, and making both of those parties are maybe more secure that that's going to happen than all of us after the Pat McAfee show the other day. I don't want to talk to anybody, but I want to talk for a half-hour show. So I think that probably plays into this a little bit as well, because I know there still have been a lot of constant conversations between Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers.
Here's Rodgers, by the way, just 1 second, Conor. Here's Rodgers on the McAfee show talking about his uncertain future. Or maybe it's certain. Who knows? This f***ing guy.
I'm open to anything and attached to nothing. So yeah, retirement still could be a possibility. But right now, my focus has been and will continue to be on my personal life.
Well, my point was more related to Shedeur. I think it represents like a massive failure of our industry, where like all these people do all this great work and they unearth all these facts about someone, and then we just willingly ignore them when it comes to the theater of this thing. And now at the end of a draft, we're just like, oh, how shocking it is that this person slipped or fell. And it's like, really?
It's not a slide.
His peak upside, like the nicest thing that I've ever heard anyone say about him is that maybe one day he can be fucking Teddy Bridgewater. So like, yeah, he shouldn't be taken in the first round. And the fact that, you know, I heard that the Steelers are more interested in Jalen Milroe. And I think that makes more sense for Pittsburgh. He has more relatable NFL traits and a higher ceiling and an upside. Like, I think all that makes sense. And I genuinely do feel sad for Shedeur Sanders. I really do. And I know, no one else is going to feel bad for him. He's
a little ego death for a Nepo baby is never a bad thing.
Right. He's the millionaire son of a multimillionaire. So cry for me. But at the same time, we built this like clapboard castle around this kid just so we could knock it down in primetime television. The kid was never going to go in the first round.
You could say that's a little bit of their camp's fault as well, Conor, and not just the media.
Sure.
Hype. Yeah.
It wasn't even a pro day, for Christ's sake. It was what?
It was a
James?
showcase.
It was a showcase. All right, ad time. Mark?
I have my credential. I should have grabbed it. It was like a dinner
while
plate.
James finds the credential.
Yeah, you find that credential.
Go ahead, Mark.
Dan, I live up here in Hollywood, a busy
I'm
part
aware,
of town.
yes.
Yeah, and so
Very nice. I've been to your place.
Yeah, like
Great
I don't
view
have
of
a
the city.
long driveway. Like in my past, I lived at places with like a long driveway with
Yep,
like
I've seen your
gravel
other
road.
residences in the past as well. Yep.
Mailboxes, you put the little red thing up. I don't know what that means.
Known you
at
for
this
many
point.
years. Yep.
But like, they in my own mailbox here in Hollywood, they
It's the
sent
largest
me.
credential ever.
There it is. There's the
We'll
show.
go back to that. I received an incredible shipment. I'm going to let you know from Via, our friends.
I was wondering where you're going with all this
incredible
house
box.
talk.
Just a box filled with incredible treats. It's got something for everyone. And Via, we'll get into it, but 420 just passed. You can still be part of that, though. And there's no better time to elevate your wellness routine, whether you want to relax, recharge, or refocus. Via has the perfect lineup for you. Trusted by over 500,000 happy customers, Via is changing the game in natural wellness, whether you're looking to sleep better, have better libido, Justin, just a little suggestion there, improve focus, recover, or simply relax. Via has a tailored solution just for you. With products ranging from 0 to high cannabinoid levels, Via lets you fully customize your experience to fit your needs. And the best part, Via legally ships across the USA, discreet, direct to your door, no medical card required, and backed by a worry-free guarantee. So if you're 21 plus, check out the link to Via in our description and treat yourself to Via's annual Spring 420 sale. Black Friday level savings, up to 50% off packs and bundles, and get a free gift plus more savings with your first order using our exclusive code HTC. That's our show. Again, that's code HTC at the link in our description. After you purchase, they ask where you heard about them. Please, and I urge you.
I love Mark's ad read inflection.
Well, no,
to his voice.
these are so that makes me sound so demanding. But please support our show and tell them Heed the Call sent you, and enhance your everyday with Via. And we love your credential, and that's a big part of this.
We love Via. We love James's credential. And by the way, while we're here, a reminder that on Underdog, it's never too early to lock in your season-long NFL high or lowers for 2025. Do it right now. The rookies who were drafted Thursday night are already in. Cam Ward, first overall pick. Poor Cam, Justin, he's like, you just breeze right over the Cam Ward pick. He's the first pick. He's the Titans quarterback. He's a future star. We'll get to him. We'll circle back, Justin, I promise. Anyway, his higher or lower for passing yards is set at 3,149.5 yards. Gravedigger, is he going higher than that?
If he stays healthy, yes.
Yes, he will.
Okay.
If you think so, you could add this to a pick'em entry today on Underdog, or go find your favorite team and see what options are available. Just scan the QR code on your screen to get started, or sign up with the code HTC, and new users can receive up to $1,000 in bonus credits when they deposit, for our U.S. audience only.
Must be 18 or older. 19 or older in Alabama and Nebraska. 19 or older in Colorado for some games. 21 or older in Arizona and Massachusetts. And present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Yeah, just to cycle back to the Sanders thing real quick, like, I feel for the kid. Anybody that thinks they're going in the first round, and Eisen made a good point at the end of the telecast, like, at the beginning of the season, there was talk that he's a top 10 pick, a top 5 pick. Whether that was ever actually realistic, maybe it wasn't. But the fact that he was tied to Deion and there was so much hype around that program at Colorado, it is a little bit of ego death. But a man that had that much jewelry on with his own logo, sometimes I think it's not the worst thing to get a little reality check. That's all.
In the same week, Shedeur Sanders had his number retired at Colorado.
That
and was
ridiculous.
not selected in the first round of the draft.
Yeah, the guys that won the national championship.
Cordell Stewart does not have
Colorado.
His number retired there.
Yeah, we're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
These guys went like 8-5 twice.
He finished 13-11.
13-11.
That's his
they
career record at
4-8 their first year.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back into it. So after the Steelers go with Derek Harmon, we get another running back, and I thought this was kind of an interesting move. In fact, let's do a little two-hander here. So the Chargers take another running back, Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. A big bruiser between the tackles, dude, with some real talent. Maybe not a home run hitter, but a guy who is going to be a great Jim Harbaugh type dude. You might remember they also have another former first-round pick in the backfield in Najee Harris that they got in free agency. So there's quite an interesting 1-2 punch. And you Justin Herbert fans who are still waiting for him to throw for 5,000 yards, don't hold your breath. And a pick later, the Green Bay faithful there at Lambeau go nuts when Matthew Golden out of UT comes off the board. And that was, I think, a very wise pick, James, for a team that has a lot of options at wide receiver, but they're still looking for the dude. Maybe Golden becomes that guy.
Yeah, I wrote down, first off, watching the draft, this was like one of the greatest moments of the draft, right? Mark Murphy getting to go out there as he's going to retire, I think was an awesome moment as president and CEO of the Packers, and being out there with all those fellow owners that are out there in the crowd. And then they pick a wide receiver for the first time in an eternity.
Let's listen to that. Let's listen to a little sound there.
This was the coolest draft crowd we've had.
Yes, I like this job. Nice work here.
With the 23rd pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the 13-time world champion Green Bay Packers, for the first time since 2002, draft a wide receiver. Matthew Golden, wide receiver, Texas.
$105,000 people live in Green Bay, 250K. We're at the draft, and it is like a sneaky amount of pressure, right? Like when you are the host city, taking like a flashy skill player is a lot of pressure to do that because you can't trade out of the round, although I think it's happened before. And taking a guard is a little bit bummer, but you grab Golden, the crowd is going off.
So the reason I love the crowd part of it, I love Golden in the draft process. Obviously on our show in 89, we focus on receivers so much. This is a glue guy, most teams thought he was a high volume 2 guy, like a ton of volume 2 guy, can play inside and outside, can do a lot of different things. He's faster actually in his 40 than he is on tape, but a lot of people believe he's actually going to tap into this speed and even be more. The reason I like talking about Matthew Golden and the Packers is I'm looking at the list right here, and we kind of jumped over the what Tampa did at 19 and what Denver did at 20, and we talked about Omarion Hampton. I'm looking at 19 with Tampa, 20 with the Broncos, 22 with the Chargers, and 23 with the Packers. They didn't need these picks. They just got better and deeper at these positions.
Best player available, baby.
I think that's usually what good teams do. I love Jason Light as a general manager, and Emeka Egbuka might be a great pick for them to add to a receiver
Connor's
room.
on this chat. Let's be easy with the Jason Light positivity.
Okay, yeah. Well, listen, I think that's a good pick. And then, Barron is a big. They didn't think he'd fall to them at 20, and now you have a defense that now has the potential to be the best in football after what they did with Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw, and they were already good before those free agent. And then you look at Hampton add to Najee Harris. Like, these are, I won't say luxury picks. They just got better collectively at certain positions. I think Matthew Golden, you throw him into that group as well, and he might be their number one, which Josh Jacobs will get his wish.
They have about 14 wide receivers right now, so I enjoy the move. Conor believes that the Mannings killed the Pope, by the way. So you've got to dig into where Conor's coming from mentally on a lot of NFL topics.
I wasn't on the stream.
The Vikings, I'm telling you, this is where you want to be, though, JP. This is where all the ear and eyeballs are,
Yeah, I'm going to
go ear holes and eyeballs, baby.
I'm going to go back thinking about it, but I'm going to check the numbers consistently.
The Vikings take a guard. This was surprising. Donovan Jackson. A lot of people thought they would go secondary with that pick, but they take a guard there. So that takes us to the 25th overall pick, and here come the New York Giants, as we said, trading up and taking Jaxson Dart, the quarterback. So he comes off the board, and we'll see if Dart can play the guitar. But I do like, I got to give, and sometimes it's tempting, Ceci, and I actually saw it on NFL Network in their little post-game show back in the Inglewood studio. They were talking about who won the draft, and then two of the guys just named the teams that picked twice. And it's like, it kind of looks good when you just have 2 first-round picks over one. But in this case, I think the Giants, in terms of where they need to go, and a team that as bad as they were, have some pieces. There's some pieces, and now you add interesting, exciting moves on both sides of the ball. To me, what is this for anyway? Just to have fun and get excited about your team. So there you go. I like the Giants overall. I give them a big thumbs up for tonight.
Connor, I love, because you're like a Giant centric, but it's like part of the job in the off season is to rebrand the operation. And like, if you're a coaching staff and a front office under fire, you've kind of rebranded it and said, like, stick with us and we'll hang around here. And I don't know, like, someone will Jaxson Dart save that? Like, I know that social media Giants handle will be like, we just found our quarterback. Well, like, talk to me in 1,200 days.
Right. Apologize for being cute, but it's a dart throw. But
it is.
It's worth the dart throw. Maybe he does become Bo Nix or whatever. But I like this plan, Conor, much better than the old go get 37-year-old Matt Stafford with 70,000 injuries playing in the swirling winds of the cold Meadowlands without a great offensive line, or Aaron Rodgers after what we just saw with the Jets. Like, this just functionally makes a little bit more sense to me, the direction they're in. So that's kind of why I liked it.
And the one thing I think that I sort of skipped over or glossed over with the Carter pick too is that we keep forgetting that the Giants have an absolutely brutal schedule next year. They get the AFC West and the NFC North as two of their divisions, right? But what is one thing that can maybe survive those two divisions in particular? It's a good pass rush, right? Yep. Because you have the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love does tend to drift and put himself into bad situations. You have the Vikings, who had to overhaul their offensive line and are starting essentially a rookie quarterback. And, you know, some of these teams like the San Francisco 49ers, the Chiefs, they're going through offensive line rebuilds. The Giants are now, at the very least, not out of these games, right? And I think they're more relevant because of the strength of the pass rush. I don't really care about Dart as a this coming year prospect, but I do think that they've given themselves survivability, which they didn't have, 3 or 4 hours ago, before this round started.
Well, or counterpoint, you're all fired by Yom Kippur. Like, it's one of the two things occur here. So,
okay, so the Falcons aren't done. The Falcons,
let's talk about that shit.
Back into the first round, acquiring the number 26 overall pick from the Rams. The Rams, Ceci, they do that whole setup in the firehouse, an active firehouse with a fucking helicopter right behind poor Jordan. You gotta let the
league know you're going to trade out of the
pick. Panic attacks. And we're not even making picks. I mean, what are we even doing? Anyway, with that pick,
don't distract our military. Like, how about let's start there as a NFL team. Like,
Atlanta took edge rusher James Pearce Jr. out of Tennessee after earlier selecting linebacker Jalen Walker out of Georgia with their original pick at 15. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing that, I don't know, Conor. Like, to get the number 26 pick, and I give the Falcons credit. They are shithouse drunk every draft night. They always bring
look good,
something.
Though. Their suit game is outstanding.
Yeah,
in there.
They dress well, and everyone talks themselves into their moves. But at the end of the day, they never do anything just normal. It has to be totally bizarre. Like, you give Kirk Cousins $1 trillion and then you take a quarterback top 10, or you take a tight end top 5, or you do this or you do that. This year, they trade back into the first round. Cool. You gave up a first round pick to get to 26. Holy shit. And by the way, I know we all like Penix because he looked good in 3 games. But what if Michael Penix actually stinks? And you just gave up your first round pick and it could end up being a lottery ticket. What are we doing? Maybe you've broken the curse of John Abraham and now you have 2 edge rushers that are going to go maul quarterbacks in the NFC South. Or maybe you're just playing drunk and stupid again. I don't get it, Conor, and you're shaking your head, and I like it.
I think it's James had used one of my favorite words, which is malpractice. This is organizational malpractice, because if you're Rich McKay or you're Arthur Blank, how do you allow a GM to spend a pick that he may not be there to spend? It's much easier for a GM to say, "F it, I'll spend the 2026 pick because I need these guys in 2025 so I don't get fired for building a bad fantasy football team that hasn't won more than 8 games under my purview." Like, that's the crazy thing about all this. This was an 8-win team last year in the worst division in football. They haven't gotten markedly better this offseason, and you might hand the Rams a top 15 pick to get edge rushers that should have been the first thing that you did as a general manager to build. But instead, you wasted all these picks on fantasy football players. Like, this is not a serious team. It's not a serious organization. And this pick, this team is going to get laughed at for the next calendar year.
And by the way, they're also undersized, guys. They're both under 245.
And
these
Raheem
are not
Morris
slam
is great.
dunk picks.
Raheem Morris is great at running stunts, at running games. Like, these defensive players are going to do interesting things, but the infrastructure isn't there. It doesn't make sense. It's not going to work.
Yeah, it's been an interesting offseason.
What
in
the
Atlanta.
hell is even that?
Daddy, chill.
Woo! I have, talking to people down there, that they've obviously they're over the moon over Michael Penix.
Chill.
What they've been doing right now, and what they feel like they can get out of Michael Penix, they think is above and beyond what anybody else thinks. But they also, in their conversations, we're saying, I think we got to score 35 a game if we want to compete. And that's leading into the draft, because they knew how bad their defense was. I got a text from somebody on another team that was just like, this is just 100% desperation. And that's what this is right here. What I find fascinating is this. They were going to pick Pearce at 15. They were hoping he was going to be there at 15. He's also has maybe some of the biggest character questions of anybody selected in the first round, which the Falcons I'm well aware of. The Falcons are well aware of, and they believe they can handle. But they were going to take him at 15.
Daddy, chill.
I find it very funny that they don't take him at 15. They take the hometown guy at 15 in Jalen Walker. I watched the videos from the war room, and you know who I don't see in any of the videos?
Uh-oh.
I don't see
Nobody went to his birthday party?
No, I don't see the defensive coordinator.
Oh.
Why don't I see the defensive coordinator celebrating in any of these videos?
He hung himself.
Well, he just left the Jets, so he's probably in a good mood. But, like...
it's Ulbrich, that's right.
It's Ulbrich is their defensive coordinator. So... what I'm just curious about is, like, did we pass on the guy at 15? We took the hometown guy at 15. All the fans are super happy. Oh, crap, let's go back and get the guy we were originally going to pick, but now we have to give a first-round pick to get him. Like, it just, the whole operation of it just seems so discombobulated, and I believe there's a lot. I'll just say I think this was an opportunity.
I'm going to get my sack back.
Not an opportunity. I'll say this. This might be one of the moments in the first round where the owner got involved. I'll just say
that.
Oh,
You know what? Good
like
fingerprints, detective work there. They're always a little bit extra, and that it could be some meddling. Here's what GM Terry Fontenot said afterwards: 2 of the best pass rushers in the SEC. That's exciting. Okay, let's hope it works, and let's hope you didn't just hand over like the 10th overall pick to the Rams next year, because everybody's going home if that's the case. Let's finish out the rest of this first round and then do a little internal housekeeping. Great work by everybody so far. Let's bring this sucker home. All right. Here we go. I mentioned Pierce. Malachi Starks, safety, goes to the Ravens.
Can I say one quick thing about that?
Yes,
it's more verbal. It's like I understand, like, oh, that's the guy whose name I said, and it's like, we all have a nice time with your pronunciation.
Marc lived with that for a couple of days. You could.
Well, no, that's fine. But like, I was watching NFL Network at this point,
Mordecai.
and it was like they're talking. It's like, oh, we're going to add him to the defense now. He could be like, we'll find out him and Kyle Hamilton. It's like they kept saying like he could be on top of the Christmas tree. That's the new term for I don't know if it's that new, but it's like for a safety that can be the back. It's like he's on top of the Christmas tree. It's like I right now don't want anyone to say that ever again. I am these phrases need to be taken away. They are tedious, and I don't want to deal with it. On top of the Christmas tree.
So like the final, like customarily, the top of the Christmas tree is an
the
ornament that kind of just tops off.
I think. Yep.
And I think it's meant to mean like the final piece of a perfect, in this case, defense. All right, Malachi Starks, Tyleik Williams, who you said, Mark, was very Lionsy. We're going to get to your mock in a moment. He does go to the Lions at 28. The Commanders take Josh Connerly Jr., tackle out of Oregon. The Bills take Maxwell Hairston, corner out of Kentucky. And then here we are. You could set a clock. It will always happen. The Eagles are on the clock. And it's like in a fantasy draft, right? Where one of the guys either has the time zone wrong, or he's got to take his kid to the orthodontist, or he's drunk and he misses the draft, so he's on auto draft. And it's actually sneaky annoying because that means somebody that slipped down the board otherwise ends up getting scooped up by the robot. That's what Howie Roseman does. I give him credit for it because for many people, including Daniel Jeremiah as an example, Jihad Campbell was a number 12 on his board. He's still sitting there at 31. The Eagles tried to trade up earlier in the first round, couldn't get up there, sat back, and Jihad Campbell, wouldn't you know it, is still sitting there at 31. Howie makes the play and gets another impact player out of Alabama. They love their Alabama and Georgia studs. So I bow down to Howie Roseman. He's on auto draft, and sometimes auto draft works.
So I was talking to people in Philadelphia like a week before the draft, and I'm going, all right, how's this going to play? And they're like, well, last year we went in pretty much knowing we wanted to go defensive back or tackle. And obviously they hit it out of the park with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean at the top of the draft. And they're like, this year we're pretty much wide open. The only things we're probably not going to go after are quarterback, running back, and I'd say linebacker, unless one falls, like one guy. Unless he falls to us, we won't go there. Well, there they go. And somehow,
they did trade up one spot with the Chiefs to get into position, but they didn't have to give up much to do it. I think a 5th-round pick.
No, it didn't take much. And Howie's got all these picks. He's got 20 over these 2-bet drafts, so he had a lot to play with. The thing that I would say is, and this is why Howie is good at this as well, is they have a luxury to not even really play him much this year. They can let him get healthy. He might start, the season on PUP or start camp on PUP with the shoulder. He has a lot of medical. I texted people there, when they made the pick, and they said the medical does check out for us. It's both shoulders, I think, and a knee. But talent-wise, he's outstanding. He doesn't need to play right away. When you have a complete roster, you can take these chances in the first round that other teams don't have the luxury to take.
They're loaded. And
why are we even watching next season? We get where this is going.
Sports is funny like that, though. We'll see. But like the roster just got even better, and the only thing about it that it's not predictable. It's so predictable now that it's not even surprising when it happens. The final pick, as we said, the Chiefs move back one spot. They get more tackle help. They obviously need to fix their offensive line after what the Eagles did to them in the Super Bowl. They take Josh Simmons.
Huge. Yeah, I think that pick is enormous, honestly. I don't want to be the guy who talks too much, but I just want to say, I talked to a couple of teams that said that was the best tape of any tackle in this draft, and it may not have been close in terms of athleticism, in terms of his ability to move on the outside. His tape was awesome. He's got some maturity things that some teams were about, but you can't get good quality tackles in this part of the first round. So if this hits, it's kind of similar to how they hit on Trey Smith, when everybody passed on Trey Smith because of I think it was the blood clots in the lungs or whatever it was. I like that. I just kind of was the blood clots in the lungs or whatever.
Yeah.
But
who doesn't have those?
Yeah. It ended up not being a problem, and he's one of the best guards in football. If this hits, this is enormous because they're never picking at the top of the draft to take tackles in the top half of the draft.
Right, James? Howie Roseman, and with good reason, sucks up a lot of the oxygen when we're talking about the genius GMs. Brett Veach,
very good.
Got a pretty damn good track record. The reason why they keep going to Super Bowls is the way they're able to build around the all-time quarterback in Mahomes. And Jeremiah said that he thinks he's the most talented offensive lineman in this draft.
Big time.
And there are reasons, as you're alluding to, that he didn't go higher. But if you trust, we talked about kind of tying this all together. Do we trust the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Cleveland Browns or whatever to take advantage of a transcendent talent or a prospect at the top of the draft. In the back end, I trust the Chiefs to make the most of a talented but troubled prospect potentially here in Simmons. All right.
I would just note that I have blood clots and maturity issues, and like I'm still right here. So
right, you're definitely still on the board going into day 2,
and you have your own show.
Yeah, exactly.
What are those socks? The tight socks?
Compression socks? Compression socks. And then I will tell you.
You haven't lived till you saw Ceci in compression socks.
Well, no, but then the problem is they show up. I'll keep this short, but they show up on the X-ray machine, and so especially if you go international, yes, like I had to pull down my pantalones to like show them my compression socks. It was like 2 German men with like feelers, and it was just like, why was I born? So
the only thing I asked for my birthday,
you're a sexual icon.
The only thing I asked for Mark for a birthday is him like wearing a pair of Bermuda shorts with his sanitary socks on. That's all I want.
It's not sanitary socks. It's to keep your
compression
legs.
socks. Sorry.
Yeah, not
they're probably
sanitary
as well, actually.
Hey, let's celebrate Mark.
Let's do it.
Let's check out his mock draft. Now that round 1's in the books. 7 correct. Good job. You nailed Cam Ward. You got Abdul Carter. You got Jeanty to the Raiders. You got Membu to the Jets. You got Tyler Warren to the Colts. You got Tyleek Williams, who was a Lionsy. So, yeah, he goes to the Lions. Maxwell Harrison, you got him as well to the Bills. Lance, who is quite dismissive of you and always has been.
Yeah.
5 correct.
Oh!
7 beats 5. And a rivalry is born.
I deeply respect Lance and his method, and it's like I came from the sun, and so something else will occur when it doesn't matter what industry you're in.
I think
I operate differently than Lance, and I love Lance, but just anyone that thinks...
It sets the table well for Lance's appearance next year, put it that way, because I don't think he can have, Conor, the same attitude he had in 25 when Sessler's dropping a 7-5 on his ass.
And the crazy thing is, so Marc passed up the chalky Will Campbell selection to go Kelvin Banks, which impressed Lance because Banks was certainly one of those names that wasn't talked a lot about. If he had gone chalky there, like he's almost doubling Lance's score. You know what I mean? And I think this is wildly impressive. I think there are names in the back end of that draft that weren't in a lot of mock drafts. I'm over the moon about this for Marc. I had said one of the greatest mock drafts of all time. I set the table for Marc's by saying that Paul Zimmerman, I think, got 11 correct.
13, I think, was the number.
13. I mean, This is... You almost got 8. I mean, this is not that far away, and this is a legendary performance.
Wait, what is this? What Gravedigger just built his own board?
This isn't a real thing. Take this down.
No, Justin, did you?
I tweeted this mock out from the Heed the Call account before. I think it was Wednesday morning. Maybe it was.
Wait a second, time out. This is
Dan.
funny.
When I speak about organizational problems within our production, like this.
Marc, I want you to know. I know about almost everything that is going to come up on this show in terms of boards and videos. This I had no knowledge of, prior knowledge of. You dropped 7, and then Gravedigger builds out his own board to point out that he picked 8.
Yeah, it's an incredible moment in time.
This is the dunk. I'm dunking right now with my mock draft.
Let's. That's a good transition.
I like no, but hold on. I like that you waited for Conor's entire just blow session on Marc. Just how happy you were for him.
Well, he allowed.
And then as soon as that ends, you're like, check this out. Here's
Justin
8.
allowed me roughly 17 seconds to enjoy Planet Earth, and then he's like, "Look at me. I'm from Gen X, Gen Z, whatever."
Well, okay, but the other point I wanted to make real quick before we get to Justin, that was tremendous. Lance, we all know Lance well. I used to go on Lance's radio show in Houston all the time when I lived there. We all know the breakdowns that he does and the times that he spends. He breaks down like 300 players for NFL.com. He spends months and months.
Yes.
Like, who feels worse tonight? Lance or Shedeur Sanders?
That's a fair question. And we're going to reach out. We're going to reach out to Lance for comment.
Who's more of why do I do this? Is it Lance or is it Shedeur?
Let's give Justin a little bit of grace, Mark, because we're going to end the show by showing, if you weren't able to check out the live stream, at the end of the stream, as promised, and much respect to Gravy, he did agree to the dunk contest. Can Justin dunk? And as you're watching now, this was the little hype video that we put out leading into Thursday night. But eventually came time to actually attempt the dunk. His fiance, the wonderful Jessica, drives him to the local gym. And Justin has, by my count, was about 5 attempts.
On a bike. They run a double. He sits on the back of a small bicycle. That
he was on the pegs.
I like a double bicycle. I like pegs. I also like the little, the motorcycle with the sidecar. I like that idea as well.
Like an Indiana Jones.
You got to fit his little body into that. Let's go to a dunk contest.
So here we go.
Little leather helmet and goggles. Sidecar.
Here we go. Justin Graver, once and for all, after months of hype and a claim that he could indeed dunk, we said he cannot dunk. Here are the results. And if you're not, if you're only listening to the show, check out YouTube. Here we go.
Ooh.
Oh for 1. He got up there, rattled around.
It's right there.
Drops in. It's
ice.
Oh. Number 2. He gets up. By the way, bonus points at the gym here. These random bros just sitting around what the is this guy doing?
I give him credit for
0
doing
for
that
2.
in front of those
A
people.
third attempt is just an absolute disaster. He almost agoras himself. All right, now attempt 4. He gets up. Oh, he grabs the rim, but the ball floats out of his hand and drops
Look at these guys
in.
behind the basket being like,
0
what
for
is this
4.
guy up to?
And that was it. That's when he quit, or he was kicked out of the gym. Justin Graver cannot dunk. Oh, it's official.
It's so close, though.
Justin, do you have comments?
I want to say I still, in my heart of hearts, think I can dunk.
No. You're a 33-year-old man in your athletic decline who vapes all day. There's a reason why you can't dunk. Now, to your credit, you look athletic, you're fit. You can grab the rim, which is more than I could ever do, or probably anyone else here. But you cannot dunk. And I did reach out to comment to your lovely fiance, Jessica, because I wondered what this impact could be on your relationship if it changes how she views you. Let's play that.
Hi, Dan. So I heard that Marc said that somehow after what I witnessed, I wouldn't feel the same way. And what can I say? I just like white men that can't dunk. And is that a problem? Can any of you dunk? Probably not, right? I mean, can you? You're kind of old. So yeah, I stand with all of the white men that can't dunk. That's my type. And I love it. Bye.
What a brave stance. Standing with all the white men. Can't dunk. There are many of us.
Can I offer one
She
small...
could run for president.
I will say my last thing. Justin, who just attempted to flame my existence about 4 minutes ago, I actually thought you were athletic. That it took some cojones to attempt to keep doing what you were doing with these dudes just sort of sitting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's I'd be I don't really want to do... It's I give you a lot of credit for that. I don't buy what she's saying. I think you need to work deeper on that part of it.
Justin?
Well, there's the public message tonight. It's she's going to be processing this in layers.
It's kind of like the Browns passing on the unicorn of the draft. There's an initial reaction there. That's what is it? The 7 stages of grief or whatever. I think in both cases, or 5 stages of grief, you're both in the first stage, right? We're a long way from acceptance.
Yeah. And do you think also that it was mentioned earlier by Marc Gravedigger, do you think a discreet package might need to arrive at the house to keep things fresh?
No.
Oh, okay.
I will just say about my attempts, the first one I think was the closest. And if I had
the first time you didn't dunk because Justin can't dunk?
He was already he got out of energy after the first. The first one was the closest. Because you vape between dunks.
I just didn't quite push the ball down enough, but I was high enough in terms of how I jumped. In terms of how I jumped. The last attempt, I think I would have gotten that one through if I hadn't rubbed my hand raw on the rim on the first few tries.
It's getting
I definitely got high enough on the last one, but the ball slipped out of my hand. So I admit I did not dunk. I'm not going to say I did dunk, but I do think with like a little more
with all due respect, nobody wants to hear that.
You are like a reverse Sylvia Plath. You need to shut it down verbally.
You should have tried the self alley-oop, the throw it, and if it bounces perfect, all you got to do is tap it in and grab the rim. The self alley-oop, that's what you should have went with.
Or the LeBron James go to the scorer's table and chalk up your hands and throw it up in the air. I'm sure that would have been really cool in front of all those guys too. Yeah. Maybe you would have grabbed the rim and held on to it then.
Yeah, probably.
And your hand wouldn't be so raw.
All right, well, Justin, I'll tell you what. Thank you again. It was good content, and you're always a good sport, and you got a wonderful fiance who's standing by your side, so that's good.
Now.
And you have the number 1 overall pick in the draft now, in Cam Ward. So it was a bittersweet, topsy-turvy Thursday night for you. And I hope you could sleep tonight. I hope you're just not staring at the ceiling.
Well, I'll be staring Marc at my laptop editing this podcast for like the next 5 hours, so that'll be fun.
It keeps getting better. All right. Good stuff. Thank you to everybody. If you checked out the live stream and now you've finished listening or watching this show, you are the best. That's why you're a hedonist. You're a sick freak, and we love it. Thank you to James Palmer. Thank you, buddy. You've said it all.
Thank you.
Thank you to Conor Orr, who is up in the middle of the night in central New Jersey, and we love that man. For so many reasons. Thank you to Josh Hayden, Jay Gruden, Steve Smith, Jordan, and Mike. Thank you to Gravy for all the production work. Thank you to everybody at Underdog for helping us make this show go. We just got nominated by, what was it, Synopsis? What was it? Yes,
a very
best
important company.
Yes, a best new podcast, sports podcast category. And that is very, very nice to hear, and it's all possible because of you people watching and listening to the show. So thank you for your support, and we'll be back Saturday night to recap all of the draft. Until then, do what you must. Justin can't dunk, heed the call.